Welcome back to the Heel Deal Podcast. You're back with your hosts, Ben and Zach, and it's been a busy week for Carolina sports, huh, Zach?
Yeah, it has been. And sorry we're for the one-day delay here, guys. We had a tough early start to the week, so.
We still got a tough start to the week. You know those Carolina academics. For all of you who don't know, we're seniors right here, so things are really ramping up midway through the semester. But thanks for sticking with us. This should come out on a Tuesday instead of a Monday. It's only a one-day delay, but we've got a good schedule for the show for you guys. Since we don't have a football game coming up this week, we're going to replace that with our observations and just a little bit of stuff about basketball for Late Night with Roy. And then, of course, we're going to cover the Georgia Tech recap, that really important win to put us back to 3-2. You feel good about that game, Zach?
Yeah, I definitely do. I'm really excited about it. And now going into the bye week, we're going to take a little bit of a break from previewing football. We'll spend the time that we normally would do for that, talking a little bit about Late Night with Roy, as Ben said. We're a week late on that, but there's still plenty to talk about there, as well as we could talk about some of our new recruits and stuff for future dates that I know everybody's excited about.
Yeah, we didn't want to give you guys like a 12-minute episode just talking about Georgia Tech, so that was our compromise. But as always, let's start with the rundown. Really good weekend for Carolina sports. All our sports went 12-0 or something like that?
Yep,
something
won
crazy?
Every single game, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I know, it's wild. So I'll break it down for you, though. Men's soccer beat UNC Wilmington and Pitt. They are sitting at 6-2-2, so they're actually looks like they're getting stronger and stronger as the season progresses. We got women's field hockey. They beat James Madison 9-0. They beat Duke 2-0. So their last three games, they have won a combined 16-0, which is pretty crazy. They are sitting at 10-0 overall. Maybe we need to become a women's field hockey podcast.
Well, this is definitely a team that is going to be, one of the big targets for everybody else. They're definitely one of the best teams in the country, if not the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And then women's soccer, they beat Notre Dame 3-0 and Clemson 1-0. So they just have that one loss, and they're sitting at 11-1 overall. So our women's sports are just absolutely killing it. Men's soccer's sticking in there too, which is awesome to see. University National Championships, right?
That's right.
Awesome. Well, let's move right into the Georgia Tech game. What were your initial impressions about that game? The bounce back that we needed so desperately after a 3-game skid.
Yeah, you said bounce back, right? And we did, I think, in every way. They scored 22 points, which is a little more than I thought they would, but that was kind of late game. We had some guys that weren't starters in there. Offensively, we looked really, really good. Sam looked great. Had a heck of a game statistically. I'm really happy with the intensity that we came out with in this game, especially on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they just seemed like the coaches knew this team needed a bounce-back statement. I mean, I know Mac was talking about how they were slacking a little bit during practice this week. This was a big bounce-back game, and I know a lot of players are echoing that. Like, they feel back on the right track after kind of putting an offensive beatdown on Georgia Tech. I think we had almost 600 total yards of offense. We had 587 yards. Sam Howell went 33 for 51 with 376 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So that's a huge volume for a true freshman. You really don't see that every day, especially from this coaching staff too.
Yeah, 51 attempts, man. That tells you kind of our mentality coming in, right? We were going to let it go. We were going to let him sling the ball around, which is what I like. It's going to help him gain more confidence moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, especially on the offensive side of the ball, everything seemed like it was going well, especially with Javonte Williams. 20 carries for 144 yards, and 1 touchdown. I'm sorry. So that's over 7 yards per carry. Just seems like our guys were rolling big time.
Big time, yeah, right. And you mentioned how Mac was talking earlier in the week about how the team wasn't practicing as hard as they did for the week at Clemson, which worried me. Because I didn't want them to have another letdown, sort of like how we came out with such intensity against Miami and then had a little bit of a letdown against Wake Forest. We didn't have that this time around, and if we did in any way, it didn't show. So that just means we're getting better, which is we couldn't ask for much more at this point in the year.
I mean, shoot, this was the first game we played that didn't end up within one score.
Yeah.
It seemed kind of weird that we actually, like, handily beat a team. I don't remember what that feels like, because the last time we did that was probably Pitt last year.
Well,
or, I mean, Western.
Western,
but
yeah. We beat Pitt by a
Western.
field goal. But, yeah, Western, which is, like we've talked about before, barely even Division I. So, yeah, it's nice to get in the win column in an ACC game on the road when we haven't had a lot of success in Atlanta. Mac was talking about in the post-game press conference and earlier in the week before we played the game, we've only beaten them in Atlanta one time since he was here last in the 90s.
Crazy.
And that was in 2015 when we won 11 games and the offense was just unstoppable. So we had not had a lot of success in Atlanta up to this point, so it's good to see us kind of put that to bed and go in there and get a solid win on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're back up to 500. We're sitting at 3-3, but the biggest thing is we are 2-1. Playing in our conference. So that's going to be huge. Again, if we want that rematch with Clemson, it's that conference record that matters.
Yep, and 2-0 in our division, too. So in the Coastal, we're 2-0, 2-1. So Clemson counts, obviously, but Clemson's in the Atlantic. So that's going to help us, too, when it comes time to hopefully get into that ACC championship game. But we got a lot of work to do before we get there, so I hope they use this bye week as a chance to really look at themselves in the mirror, see what we're doing really well, what are we really good at, what are we not good at, how much time do you want to spend trying to minimize those weaknesses as opposed to really trying to, strengthen your strengths, if that makes any sense, what do you want to spend time on. So I really hope they look at that and they spend this week in a good way because, Virginia Tech's going to be tough in a couple weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. But talk to me a little bit more about those strengths and weaknesses. We're halfway through this season. What do you think the biggest strength of our team is versus the biggest weakness that teams are going to look to get a handle on?
It's so tough, man. I mean, I'd say the running back room is definitely a strength of this team. Defensively, I think at least the strength of the team early on before we started having injuries was the defensive backfield. But now that Patrice is out and Miles has been hurt, we've had a little bit of we've had a revolving door of players in that position. But, I mean, it's been inconsistent, though, I mean, I feel like each week it's been a different strength and weakness. And I think a lot of that's because we've had so many roller coaster rides of emotion with the different games we've played. And like you talked about, we haven't had a game that was decided by more than one score up until this week. So I don't know. It's hard for me to pinpoint, but positionally I think running backs and defensive backs have been our strength. But injuries play a part into that. Offensive line is definitely improving. You touched on that a little bit. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big thing when you look at those big rushing numbers from Javonte. Like that, a lot of that's a reflection of the offensive line being dominant, which is surprising considering that one of the stalwarts of our offensive line, Nick Polino, he's still out.
Yeah.
Last time we saw him, I remember seeing him last week, like getting ready for the fourth quarter. We were either up or tied with Clemson, and he was out there with his crutches and a boot, like getting everyone to cheer. So, I really hope we can see him back sometime this season. But his replacement, Brian Anderson, is actually playing really, really well. So, if you guys don't go on Pro Football Focus, PFF.com, it's an awesome resource because they do their own grading scales for all NFL and then Division I college games. And so a bunch of UNC players were featured on their ACC Team of the Week, so the highest rated players, highest graded, I should say, at their position. So, of course, Sam Howell was in there after throwing for so many yards and a touchdown, but the Javonte was in there. But the biggest one that really matters to me and matters to this run game is Brian Anderson at center. So because Sam Howell had so many pass attempts, those are pass blocking snaps, 54 of them. So Brian Anderson only let up 2 hurries on 54 pass blocking snaps, which is just a really great feat. That means the interior is being protected. That means Sam Howell can step up, which as a shorter quarterback, that's something he needs to do. Think about like Drew Brees or Baker. You drop in the pocket, you step up and deliver that deep pass. So interior offensive line protection is so important. But while we're on the topic of PFF's ACC Team of the Week, on the defensive line, Jason Strowbridge was one of the guys in there. But we had a ton as the runners up at their position. So Tamon Fox was a runner-up. Aaron Crawford was a runner-up. As I said, Strowbridge was the highest-rated defensive interior player. And so it's awesome just seeing that these guys are the class of the ACC. We stack up on a talent level, or a lot of these individual guys stack up on a talent level with any other guys in this conference.
Yeah, very true. And you were asking me about strengths and weaknesses at this point in the year. A big strength I didn't mention before is that defensive line. Strobridge and Crawford in particular, but also Tamon Fox. The three of them have been, I'd say, very underrated and unappreciated, at least in the context of big picture. I don't think many people have been talking about how good they've been playing, and they've been doing things that had they not been there, we would not be in some of these games down the stretch.
Oh, no.
Just their ability to plug the interior gaps, as you talked about, as opposed to our offensive line preventing that interior pressure. They've been applying that interior pressure to other teams, specifically Clemson. Look at how much Lawrence was running for his life.
Yeah.
So, we really have to remember how good that defensive line has been playing. I know it's been frustrating sometimes when they've given up touchdowns and they've given up points in key situations for being tired or whatever the case may be. But I think when you're looking at it in a general lens, they have played out of their minds.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
since we're throwing around strengths and weaknesses, I do think one of the weaknesses of our team, and chalk it up to whatever you want, injuries or whatever, is our defensive secondary. They can get beaten up on, but it's our defensive line has to get that pressure on the quarterback and then stifle those runners, or else we're going to get toasted over the top. So the only reason we haven't been, having 50 points scored on us every week is that how consistent that defensive line's been.
Let me clarify. When you asked me about strengths earlier, I thought the defensive back room was a very big strength early in the year, but maybe you're right. I think now it's kind of shifted away from that because of the injuries, right? If we still had Patrice out there, and if we still had Miles Wilfork, as healthy as he was for Miami and stuff like that, in South Carolina we had the 2 picks. That would be, I think, still the strength of the defense, but now it's definitely kind of moved up. Yeah. And the linebackers are playing a lot better. Chaz impresses me more and more every week.
Man, he might be the biggest surprise of the season. I thought he was going to kind of sit at the end of the depth chart for the linebacking core. No, he's like the starter.
Yeah, he may be, and I don't know about this, guys. I haven't watched enough specific film on him versus our other backers, but I think based off what we've seen on game day, he looks like one of our most successful blitzers. He's finding the quarterback on blitzes a lot. Now, that could be because of the design, right? They're getting him open for whatever reason. The other guys are sacrificing themselves. But he's getting to the quarterback on those blitzes, and he's always, a factor on those, tackle for losses. So he's been a tremendous plus. It's hard to imagine, where we would be kind of without him, as far as depth, and then also our ability to, play linebacker.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Gosh, but do you think we're going to be able to keep this momentum going, especially over a bye week? Going into the bye week with a win, it's good for morale, but it's not necessarily good for momentum.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I think the bye week is coming in some ways at a good time for this team, but in other ways a really, really bad time. I'm kind of a proponent of, if you have a big offensive game like this where your defense is facing injury and the defense is not supposed to be, quote unquote, the strength of your team, when you have big offensive outings that build confidence, you want to just keep playing. You want to get back on the field as quick as you can. You don't want to have to sit off, and you want to think about it and let any of that momentum die. But from the other perspective, we do have so many guys that are nicked up that could come back if they were given some time to, rest those injuries. So from that perspective, I like it. And we're going into such a crucial part of our schedule. I mean, this game against Georgia Tech, and then the next game middle of October against Virginia Tech, those 2 games right there could decide whether or not we get a bowl. So we really need to get both of them. Yeah. And we've gotten one, but having the bye week, I hope we don't lose any of that intensity and the mentality of, okay, this is our time now. We've gotten through this first tough stretch of our schedule. We've gotten through Clemson. We got through all that. Let's put it behind us. Let's move on, control what we can control now, and let's go on the road and get these 2 big wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, their backs are still against the wall here in the back. I really hope the players still understand that. But we're 3-3. We need what? We need 3. We need 4 to get to that bowl. But who says we can't get to the ACC championship game? You know,
I know. Yeah,
you gotta shoot for the stars here if you're the Tar Heels.
It's gonna be tough. I mean, Virginia Tech is still, and we're gonna talk about this more extensively next week, guys. But just kind of thinking big picture, Virginia Tech is still a very respectable team. They've had their struggles this year, but they're always tough, and we're playing them in Blacksburg, and that is one of the toughest places to play in college football. If you've never seen a game there, if you ever did, you'd understand what I'm saying by that. It is a tough environment. Anytime you go there, you've been there, and you've had to play a road game. And then on top of that, Duke has not looked bad.
No.
As of late, especially, they beat Virginia Tech badly in Blacksburg, as an example. And then Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's defense is playing ridiculous right now. Pat Narduzzi's got those guys playing well. So you just think about those 3 by itself. We need to get some of those, right? Because our only gimme is Mercer. And so, sorry about that. That puts us at 4 wins. We got to get the other 2 in some way, and then we got to talk about going on the road to Pittsburgh on a Thursday, and we got to go to NC State to end the year, and they're going to be ready to kick our butts. Not saying they will, but they'll be ready to. So it's just a tough rest of the schedule. I really want us to get this win next week against Virginia Tech. That would really change the outlook of the season.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. This is a team that's shown that they can beat anybody, but they can also lose to anybody. Especially, I mean, we've joked about this in the past few weeks. We were just as likely to go 0-4 as 4-0. We honestly probably should have lost our 2 first games and won our 2 second, but it ended up being the other way around.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen? It's almost pointless trying to predict what's going to happen, This team's we got to get some cards to fall the right way, and this team's got to keep that killer intensity. But why don't we move on? As we said, we'll have the full Virginia Tech preview next week because we're not playing this week, obviously. But talk to me a little bit about what you saw at Late Night with Roy. We're shifting gears a little bit and getting back into basketball, which starts up next month.
Talk about some basketball. Yeah, our first exhibition is November 1st, and that's against Winston-Salem State. But our first real game is, I think, November 6th against Notre Dame. So we come right out of the gates with a very, very good team coming to Chapel Hill. But yeah, Late Night with Roy, as you guys know, was last Friday, the night before the Clemson game. Yeah, Ben and I both went. We had a really good time. It's always a fun time getting to go back in there for the season preview, see all the players, see the introductions, get to see them play stupid games and stuff like that, different relay races and whatnot. But, we did get a chance to see them scrimmage, of course, like they always do at the end, which gives us sort of an idea of what we can expect as far as starting lineups, maybe different roles guys are going to play, who the best players on the team look like. So it really is a cool thing to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I didn't get to go last year, so this was my first Late Night with Roy. And it was really entertaining. I think almost the highlight, even better than the scrimmage, was the fact that we made 3 of 4 half-court shots there. They had a little mini game where it was one person from the guys' team, one person from the girls' team facing off against each other. And they all shot half-court shots afterwards. And we made it. People were going crazy. Missed, and then we made it again. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. We were thinking if they made all 4 of them, the place was just the roof was gonna come off.
Yeah, they might as well give us the national championship.
Yeah, we're just gonna start taking half-court shots as part of our plan. That's just gonna be a shot you have to defend us on. Sorry, guys.
But talk to me about some of the scrimmage stuff. Who looked a lot better than you thought?
Better than I thought.
Not better than you thought, but who stood out?
Cole Anthony stood out.
Oh yeah, Cole Anthony's always gonna.
I think he's
the
best. I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I think he's probably the best player on this team, and we haven't played a game yet. There's gonna be some people that may not agree with me, and I respect that. It's close call for me with who's the best player on the team, but Cole looked like the best player on the team all around. Brandon Robinson also looked really good. He looked like he had a command of what was going on. He looks like he's got more of a leadership role right now, especially because of Christian being the first year, although he's not a freshman. You got Justin Pierce is a first year, although he's not a freshman, obviously, and then help me out with the other freshman, Harris, and then who's the other freshman?
Jeremiah
Francis, yes. With all the young guys and the inexperienced guys on this team. It's really big that Leakey and Brandon and Garrison and guys like that seem like they're more in command of the team from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I want to go back to Cole Anthony. I think Kobe White last year produced way more than people even anticipated, and that almost set a bar for Cole Anthony. It's he's got to be as good or better as Kobe White was last year, which is such a difficult task. But man, this guy Kobe, he was always a pretty soft-spoken guy, one of those quiet leader types. But man, Cole Anthony, he's outspoken. You can tell he loves being here and he loves his team. Just the way he was enjoying himself at late night with Roy. During the Clemson game when we scored our first touchdown, he was up on the riser doing the push-ups. I mean, he's soaking it all in, and that's just something that I haven't seen. Just some guy come in, knows he's going to be a one and done, but still embrace the UNC culture, and I think that can only help him on the court. I think he's going to do awesome things this year.
He's certainly got the student body and the fan base behind him. He's the best recruit we've probably ever gotten, I think. You can argue that, but I think he might be the best one we've ever gotten. And he's engulfed himself in the culture of the campus. He's become almost like the UNC celebrity right now, making the guest appearance at the football game, doing the push-ups, stuff like that. But yeah, he looked really good. I'd say another area that I thought we looked really good was our interior defense in the front court. I know it's a scrimmage, but Garrison looked really good. Armando blocked some shots. We didn't see Sterling, which I'm not really sure what's going on there. Even Brandon Huffman looked pretty formidable on defense, which is what we're used to. So I thought that was another strength of the team. I think we're going to block more shots this year.
Well, we're definitely a bigger team, and a lot of that's the addition of Armando Bacot in there. He might be in that Luke May role a little bit, but Luke wasn't necessarily big enough to be swatting shots left and right. Yeah. Armando's a fair bit bigger.
Armando will have way more of a presence in the paint than Luke did, but he won't have nearly the outside presence that Luke did.
No, I honestly, based on what I saw, Armando didn't have that much of a jump shot, so we're going to see exactly how Roy fits him into this puzzle.
Yeah, Armando will not be a jump shooter or three-point shooter, guys, in case you were thinking he will be. At least not at first. At least not at first. I don't want to say he won't be, but based off what we saw, like Ben said, we're just going off what we see. He did not look like he was a big-time shooter, and I don't know if we expected him to be that anyway, but it's just fair to say that after what we saw. But yeah, I mean, interior defense looked really good. Garrison and everybody looked like they were having a good time. Cole looked really good from pretty much every range. His left-hand windmill dunk on the relay was pretty exciting.
It was crazy.
So I mean, it was a great experience, guys. We were excited for the season to start here at the start of November, and looking forward to hopefully us having a really, really good year. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, we're going to have a big-time basketball preview. Yeah. We'll go through the starting lineup, the players, what our ceiling is. But it's a good team, and I'm really excited. But sometimes I got to pinch myself and remind myself we're still in the middle of football season. This is the best time of year. Baseball playoffs are going on. We got hockey, basketball. We got college basketball in the horizon. Football's going.
The NFL's starting to get into not nitty gritty, but we're starting to get into some real valuable games and stuff now. So yeah, it's a great time of year, man. Fall is always an awesome time for sports. Fall
I mean, it was a little bleak this summer, man.
Well, there's just not much going on. I mean, unless you're just a big-time baseball fan, which is fine. But, personally, I'm not. So normally the summer is kind of like my break from watching sports.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that break is over, my friend. And last but not least, let's talk about the 2020 class. Just a real quick sneak preview, just because we've had Day'Ron Sharp for a while at center. And then just last week or the week before, we got Walker Kessler, a 7-foot center, coming in for the 2020 class. And then just last week, point guard Caleb Love committed. So that's 3 5-stars for next year's class. It's just kind of wild.
Yeah, it is wild, and it's exciting because, given all of our recruiting struggles we had in the, 2011 all the way through 2017 when we had all that stupid NCAA allegations against us, and they basically took all that time to come back and say we have no conclusive evidence that it was specifically athletes that were taking these classes. There's a lot of stuff we could talk about there. But it's exciting to see that we are getting these 5-star recruits now. They're starting to come in. I think Cole has a lot to do with that. Nasir and Kobe and them have a lot to do with that. Kind of opened the floodgates a little bit. But there are a couple things I do want to say about the recruiting, Ben, that we've kind of talked about a little bit off air. And that's that, as Tar Heel fans, we know that Roy's system is going to, we're going to be competitive and we're going to be good no matter really who we have on our team. We're going to be a formidable team. But now that we're getting these recruits, I've heard people say, 2020, no matter if Cole or anybody stays, watch out. There's no way we can be stopped now. We're getting all these 5-star freshmen. I just want to stop and say for a second, guys, let's put the brakes on that. Okay, I know this is a long time before we ever see these guys on the court. This is, strictly projection and stuff like that. But for example, I hate to be devil's advocate here, but Duke and Kentucky and people like that, teams like that, have been getting these recruits for years. And what has been our first response most of the time when they get these recruits? It doesn't matter. They won't win anything. They're just a bunch of 18-year-olds. Well, let me ask you, why is that different for us? Why is it that when we're going to get these players, it suddenly means that there's no way we can be stopped? I just think that, and I hope that's right, guys. Don't get me wrong, but let me just put that into context a little bit. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's remember that they have to develop. They're still freshmen. Doesn't matter who they play for. It's going to be exciting, but we will have a lot of work to do, and it'll be a little bit of a different thing for Tar Heel fans to see all these freshmen piling up because we're not used to that. We're used to having the teams that are a little bit older, especially relative to our competition. So I just wanted to say that a little bit, and also, how happy I am that we are getting these recruits, because I remember, Ben, in 2013, we had the opportunity to have a P.J. Harrison-led team with Andrew Wiggins possibly coming to Chapel Hill. Didn't work out largely due to the recruiting stuff. He walks, goes somewhere else, was going to probably come to Carolina. Then you fast forward to 2016. We're probably going to get Brandon Ingram instead of Duke. He grew up a Tar Heel fan, wanted to come to Chapel Hill, did not come because of the recruiting stuff, largely, and also probably Coach K had something to sway him that we aren't going to get into detail with. But and that's 2016 that was going to win the national championship if it weren't for Villanova's heroics.
Yeah.
So you just think about stuff like that. I know it's exciting to get these recruits finally. We've been waiting on this forever. We've finally started to get some of these recruits that we know we can get. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of put that into context a little bit. I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves here. Let's take everything as it comes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm glad you're talking about that, pumping the brakes on the excitement. Again, it is really exciting that we've got these guys, but man, that's a year away. We've still got this team right now to compete for a national championship, so I'm excited about that. But that'll wrap up the episode. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and as always, just hit us up on Twitter if you guys want to hear anything different or get our feedback on anything. We'd love to hear from you guys. And it's been a great episode, Zach.
Yeah, it's been good, guys. We'll talk to you next week about Virginia Tech. And in the meantime, go to hell, Duke.